Summer is upon us once again. Damn it. Okay, so summer in Japan is a drag for anyone in general, but especially for people who love the outdoors like myself. And in today's video, I want to go through a couple of reasons why summer is my least favorite season of the year. All right, well, I'm just gonna jump right into it, but just a little disclaimer beforehand, right off the top. I'm going to be using some profanity in this video almost assuredly because there's pretty much no way I can get through a video about summer in Japan without cursing at least once or twice, so please bear with me. Thinking about it a little, I think that my reasons fall into two broad categories. The first one being weather related, and the second one being related to insects, bugs, creepy crawlies, things like that. So let's start with the first category. The weather in summer in Japan. Where do I start on this topic? Well, first and foremost, I think, as you can see by the backdrop in this video, I am filming this inside, which is somewhat unusual for me. And there's a very good reason for that. There's no way in hell that I would try to film a video out in this heat. It is absolutely oppressive. Now, a lot of people will probably look at the stats, they'll look at the weather trends, the temperatures and all of that stuff, and start to criticize my conclusions here, saying, oh, it doesn't really get that hot in Japan. And they would be right, okay? The weather doesn't usually exceed, I would say, 85, 90 degrees, even on a really hot day in summer, at least for most of Japan. There's those areas where records have been broken in recent years and things like that. I'm not talking about those places. I'm just talking about what your average person in Japan experiences. But it doesn't feel anything like 85 degrees, trust me. The humidity is like sauna steam level stuff. And it is absolutely punishing being outside, let me tell you. I say this to every person who's new to Japan. I try to warn them, they never believe me. And every single time, I have a perfect record so far, they've always gotten back to me and said, Dylan, you told me so. There's also the sun harshness factor, which I'll be upfront about. I don't have a lot of science to back this up, but back in California, I do not remember ever getting sunburned this badly and this quickly. I don't seem to tan particularly well anymore. I used to back in the States. I just seem to go from pasty white to red to pasty white to red to pasty white to red to presumably cancer at some point, if I don't already have it. The only conclusion I can come to, or the main conclusion I can come to, is that the sun is just particularly harsh here. And I've heard this from other people as well. I could be wrong, could be right, I don't know. Take it for what it's worth. But in any case, the combination of the two leads to this situation where you can't move too quickly when you're outside. Otherwise, you will exhaust yourself, you'll risk heat stroke. But at the same time, you can't just sit still for too long under the sun because you'll start to roast, you'll get burned, and the sweat will start to come out just as badly as if you were exerting yourself. Something that often happens, actually, to illustrate this point is a crosswalk will turn red all of a sudden, and there's no way I can cross it. The streets are really busy streets, really dangerous, something like that. And within seconds, you can just feel your body start to respond, and the sweat beads start to well up, and you feel one drip down your back, God forbid, and you start to feel your skin kind of ache a little bit from the sun hitting it. My internal monologue when that starts to happen is just, hurry the hell up. All right, and the second aspect of this is the extreme weather in Japan in addition to the aforementioned heat. Now, if you're from somewhere like me, Southern California, you're familiar with pretty consistent weather throughout the year. And by consistent, I mean consistently sunny and nice. But in Japan, if you are unaware, summer is the rainy season, or at least the rainy season is contained within the summer. And it's anywhere from a week up to a month or more that officially is designated as the rainy season. This basically means it's pissing ass all day, every day, for days, sometimes weeks on end, and it really prevents you from doing anything meaningful, which is really unfortunate. But it's not just in the official rainy season that you see rain. Summer in general just, rain's fair game. You could have rain 1 minute and then complete sunniness the next minute. You can go a week with not a cloud in the entire sky, you start to get complacent, and then you plan a hike, the next thing you know, you wake up and it's pouring down rain outside. So the rain is just a constant issue pretty much all year round in Japan, but it's concentrated mostly in the summer. I was looking at a graph, maybe I can bring it up on here, but if you look at the weather app within Windows, actually the default app, and you put, say, a city in Southern California, let's put my hometown of Santa Barbara, you can see that winter is where all the rain is, historically speaking. So you have to click on the historical trends section of this. And that's when there's rain at all. If you know anything about California, we often experience pretty long periods of drought. But what's interesting is the opposite is true if you look at the trends in Japan. So in the summer, that's where you get most of the rain, and then in winter, there's hardly any rain. And a lot of that's because it snows instead of rains, or it's just really dry in general. But nevertheless, it's really interesting to see just how opposite it is. So if you're not used to experiencing a wet summer, then you're really in for a rude awakening. Now, there's a lot of other weather phenomena that happen here in Japan, but the last one I'm going to talk about today is typhoons. It really depends on where you live in Japan as to how much they're going to affect you. I live in an area pretty well blocked by islands on either side. It's also centrally located within Japan, so typhoons tend to lose a lot of steam by the time they get to my actual apartment or house. But if you're on the coast in Japan, particularly coasts that are exposed to the wider Pacific Ocean, you could really have some serious problems with typhoons. They can be a very dangerous thing, and even where I live, they can often be really scary for someone who's not familiar with them. And even if you're not afraid of the typhoon or you don't think it really poses any real danger to you, you're still going to be affected by it because they're going to close public transportation on big bridges. They're going to close it sometimes just in general. So you're basically grounded and you're stuck at home. And it really sucks if you actually want to get stuff done. Okay, so moving on to category number 2. Bugs, creepy crawlies, arachnids, things like that, okay? There are a lot of terrifying little things crawling around, making webs, hiding within your sheets, buzzing around your head when you're, to be quite honest, inside or outside, but it's particularly a big problem when you're outside and you're hiking. Now, I am not an expert on bugs or insects, or it's kind of a broad category. I know spiders aren't insects, they're technically arachnids, so don't try to correct me on that one, but I'm gonna put all these things into one sort of category for the purpose of this video. If you are brave enough to go out there and subject yourself to that heat, you might not be brave enough to face the living things that are out there, especially on mountains and places that I like to frequent. The first one, okay, I'm gonna break this down into 4 different types of bugs, for lack of a better word, that really make hiking shitty. Spiders.
Ah, damn it! Oh, these spiders, they're everywhere.
Unless you like getting blasted in the face every 5 seconds by a terrifying, vicious entanglement of spider webs, and I'm talking directly in the face, then please do not go out and try to hike. It is so frustrating. I've tried everything. I've gone out, I've held a big long stick in front of me and just hiked like this, constantly waving a stick in front of me, and it doesn't matter. The sheer number of spiders out there make it impossible, no matter what you do, to avoid them. You'll think you're catching all of them, and then one comes from this angle, or one grabs you around the legs, or one hits you in the chest, or you swing too low when one's up here and then it gets you in the face. And it's just no fun, because every 2 seconds a huge spiderweb hits you, you're sweaty already, so you're like slick and glistening, and there's spider webs in your eyes and you're trying to get them out, and then God forbid one of the spiders is actually on you, which happens all the time, and they're crawling around and you freak out and you're batting them off, and oh God, it's horrible. And it happens, like, it pretty much starts right at the beginning of summer. You go to your trail and then suddenly, one day it's fine, and then the next day it's just an impenetrable tunnel of spider silk. And let's talk about the spiders themselves, okay? I'm not gonna rule out the possibility that some of you might like or be interested in getting more acquainted with distressingly multicolored, Sculptula-esque spider demons that are sometimes the size of your entire outstretched hands, hanging on a web suspended in front of you, just waiting to grab a hold of your face like the movie Alien. But the good news is, as soon as the heat gets down to a certain place, then all the spiders just magically disappear. And voila, lo and behold, the trail is open once again. So it's really just a waiting game, but God, do I hate it. Okay, so the second annoying insect is the famous mosquito, or the infamous mosquito, I should say. This is a problem for a lot of people all around the world, so I won't get into it too much, but they're everywhere in Japan, and the problem is only exacerbated by the fact that there are rice fields pretty much everywhere if you live outside of the huge cities, like I do, and I always have. So they're breeding grounds, basically, for all manner of mosquitoes. Some just kind of a relatively innocuous looking gray, others terrifyingly colored with stripes and things like that. There's all kinds of scary mosquitoes around here. But you've got rice fields, which are often full of water because they have wet rice paddies here. You also have the extensive network, the complex network of irrigation canals that go out to said fields. And these irrigation canals also run through cities. And because of Japan's mountainous terrain, the towns themselves are always crisscrossed by various rivers that are coming down from the mountains and emptying out into the sea. So you've just got bodies of water everywhere, and that means that there are going to be mosquitoes in the billions anywhere you go in Japan pretty much all summer when they like to breed. So if you're one of those people, and fuck you if you are, who hardly ever gets bitten by mosquitoes, for some reason you have some sort of just evil bad blood that they don't like sucking on, then it's not a problem. You're good. But for someone like me, I'm actually allergic to mosquitoes, so they cause horrible swelling. They last for a week. They don't heal. It's pretty awful stuff. So yeah, mosquitoes. The third bug that I would like to talk about today, and there are a bunch actually. There's a bunch of bugs I'm not going to mention in this video. I'll make other videos about them. I actually am planning to make some more dedicated videos about some of the bugs I'm mentioning today though. So yeah, just keep in mind it's limited today. I'm kind of just scratching the surface. But the next big one, and the most, well, they're big in size, but also they're big in terms of their ubiquity in Japan, are cicadas, okay? Now, sure, you play a video game about Japan, you watch a movie about Japan, it might seem kind of quaint, or there's something exotic about hearing the cicadas in the background chirping. But let me tell you, if you're here in the height of summer and you're outside standing under a tree, the racket is absolutely deafening and it makes it really hard to do anything. And that's another reason why I can't really film outside. It's just too damn loud. They're so annoying. But it's not just that. I mean, sure, I can deal with a really loud sound for about a month out of the year. But the other big issue is just how gigantic these things are. I mean, these bugs are absolutely huge and they fly all around stupidly. They have no ability. They're not graceful flyers, let's just say that. So you'll just be walking under a tree, one of them will get spooked and it'll fly right into your face or your chin or something like that. I mean, God forbid you're on a motorcycle or something like that going at any speed and you get hit by one of those things. I mean, it would be like getting hit with a slug in the chest. I mean, you could probably I imagine it has caused more than its fair share of motorcycle crashes over the past century or so. Cicadas are crazy big, and they're not particularly, let's just say, pleasant to look at or to be around. They're all, you know, big and crunchy. They got big wings. They're loud. When they hit into things, they make a lot of noise, and they don't live very long. So the thing about cicadas, there's different types around the world. They're a really fascinating animal. They are basically in hibernation. They hatch and then they stay dormant underneath the dirt for a period of many years. I think in the case of Japanese cicadas where I live, it's about 7 years. And then once every 7 years, they spring out of the ground, they fly around, they mate, they lay more eggs, and then they essentially die. So cicadas can't even eat. They don't even have a stomach. Their only purpose is to live long enough to reproduce so that the next generation can start its 7-year process of growing up and maturing again. But from the day that they hatch out of the ground, their time is numbered. the clock is ticking. And so they're kind of just withering away slowly, and then they get to a certain point where they just can't really move anymore, but they don't die right away. So you just walk around on the street and there's half smashed cicadas, half eaten cicadas, half dying cicadas, and they're kind of wiggling and twitching and spinning on the ground. Or you might think one's dead and you go to move it and then it just springs to life all of a sudden. They're just not a very pleasant insect, and I would rather not have so many of them around all the time. Okay, the last bug I'm going to talk about is my personal nemesis, and it's the nemesis of anyone who's hiked in an area where they happen to live. This is the Japanese horsefly, known as abu in Japanese. Now, I'm going to make a dedicated video to these fucking satans of the forest, but for now, I'll just tell you the basic gist of why they suck to be around. So they're enormous, and they are generally not carnivores, but the females, in order to get enough nutrition to produce offspring, so I think they need protein is what they're really going after, they need to consume blood. Okay, so we have regular horseflies, sure, big, ugly, whatever, but not bloodsuckers. Then you've got the female, sexually mature horseflies, disgusting, horrifying vampires that will circle you incessantly, trying to get at your juicy blood at any cost. They tend to live in forests in Japan, ones where there's a lot of moisture, so there's kind of a lot of tree cover, and it's moist and very shady. They don't like to be in the direct sun. And most hikes, you won't come across them, but other hikes you will. And I've been on hikes where they just absolutely are relentless. They attack you, they can sense places where your skin is exposed, they can sense your heat and where the best places to attack are, and there's just no way to stop them. They are really, really agile flyers, unlike the cicadas, and they'll find you and they'll bite you. And they get there and then they get you, and by the time you feel the pain, it's already too late. They've already basically slashed open your skin and started to lap up your blood. So to talk about the anatomy a little bit of these female horseflies or abu flies, they have a series of scissor-like knives for teeth, or mandibles, I think is what you'd call them, that they use once they land on a potential blood source, they use these to basically cut into the flesh in a scissor-like fashion, making a bunch of gashes. And there's a chemical or like a toxin on these mandibles that actually is an anticoagulant. So it basically makes your blood keep flowing as fast as they need it to in order to get a lot of blood. Once they've cut you open and the blood starts to pool up, they lap it up and they drink it as fast as they possibly can. And they can do this very, very quickly. It's absolutely horrifying, and just to think that I've been bitten by these things is pretty gross. But they do it almost immediately, and then they leave, and it hurts, sure, and you're like, oh, that really sucks. But they have really disgusting, dirty mouths, and in my case at least, I usually have a disgusting, huge welt that basically, sometimes it is as big as this. Like, I have an area of skin on my leg that's swollen like that big, and it starts to leak, and it oozes and it itches and it hurts. And in some cases, I've heard actually you can get certain diseases from the mouths of these horseflies. I don't think I've ever contracted anything from them, but they hurt, and they hurt bad. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. I've already blabbed enough about summer and complained enough. I really, truly do like living in Japan. I love all the hiking opportunities and all of that stuff. But it really sucks when essentially everything just gets put on pause as soon as summer rolls around, because there's just too many things to contend with. It's usually not worth it to go out and do any real hiking. But there are a couple of saving graces about summer in Japan, and I think the most obvious one, the beaches. They have some pretty cool beaches. The water temperature is great compared to my home region of Southern California. It's nice and warm here. It's just enough to cool you off, but not freezing cold to the point where you're gasping for breath. So yeah, don't give up. Go on a trip to Okinawa, or maybe go up to Hokkaido where it's a little cooler. So anyways, hope you found that interesting. If you live in Japan, I hope you could relate to it and share a couple of laughs with me. If you don't know how it is in Japan, take this as a warning. And if you'd like to hear or see any other content related to life in Japan, Japanese history, culture, just the general outdoors, hiking, nature, all that stuff, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will try to keep the videos coming. All right, everyone, well, stay cool out there, and until next time.